Hello, buddy. Welcome back to Tin Man's Core Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm reacting to my second Midnight Tales video for you guys. This was titled Six True Disturbing Gas Station Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights back off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag. Alright, everybody, here we go.
I work at a gas station right off a busy highway,
Okay.
so we get a lot of people just passing through. It's a 24-hour store, and usually there's only one person working per shift. We're super short-staffed, so I picked up an overnight shift, even though I don't usually work those hours. Being a woman working alone at 3 a.m. isn't exactly ideal, but I figured, hey, most of the time it's just tired truckers and road trippers grabbing snacks.
You would think, right? You never know nowadays. You might have some crazy person walk in there, grabbing snacks, and then all of a sudden they might want to rob the place.
Then this one guy comes in. At first, nothing about him seemed off. He walked in, and I did my usual, hey, need any help? He said no, just getting gas, but needed to use the bathroom. Cool, happens all the time. He disappears into the restroom, and I go back to my paperwork. A few minutes later, he comes back inside and tells me he's confused about the pump. Then he says something that immediately makes me uneasy. You might have to come outside to help me. Now here's the thing. Customers don't usually say that. If they're having trouble, they just complain that the machine isn't working. The way he worded it, that felt off. Still, I shake it off because, honestly, he just looks like a nerd.
You shake him off, he's going to be mad. There was probably nothing wrong with the pump either. He was just coming up with some excuse for you to come out there. Thank God she came to her senses and not went out there. But I know that guy's not going to give up on that pump issue.
He doesn't seem threatening, so I check the register to see if there's an error on his pump. But here's the weird part. There's nothing. No error, no payment attempt, not even a loyalty timed out message, which always pops up if someone tries to pay but walks away. It's like he never even touched the pump before coming in to ask me for help. I offer to let him pay inside, and he agrees. Goes out, grabs his wallet, and hands me $10. I give him his receipt, thinking we're done here. But then he asks again, "Can you help me?" I don't understand the machine. Now, I don't know why I did this, but I accidentally let it slip that I was alone. We're not really allowed to leave the store during overnights since it's just me here, and it's not safe to go outside. I immediately regret saying it, but he still doesn't seem like he's trying to be creepy. Instead, he keeps pushing. I don't understand what it's asking me. I need help. I'm not scary. At this point, my gut is screaming, don't go outside. I tell him again, it's not about you being scary. It's just store policy. I'd have to say the same thing to an old lady asking for help at this hour. That should have been the end of it. But instead of walking out, he stalls by the door, then asks one last time if I can come outside. Now I'm pissed. I've already said no twice. I don't care if he doesn't understand the pump. I am not going outside. So I hit him with the most annoyed, deadpan explanation ever. Okay, all you need to do is 1. Pick up the nozzle. 2. Select the fuel grade. 3. Put it in your tank and squeeze the handle. I'm not going outside. That finally gets him to drop it. He walks back to his car and, surprise, surprise, pumps his gas without any issues. And you know what else? His plates were from my state. The more I thought about it, the weirder it got. He never even tried using the pump before coming inside. He wanted me to step outside before offering to pay inside, which, at 3 a.m., just feels off.
He probably known how to work the pump, but he was trying to get you out of that store just so, one, he can probably knock you over the head and kidnap you, or come up with some excuse to go back inside the store and rob the place. I don't know what this guy was up to. This guy's already starting to sound sketchy.
And the fact that he wouldn't take no for an answer? Yeah, that was enough for me to trust my gut. I don't know what his deal was, but I do know one thing. I'm really glad I didn't step outside.
I'm glad you didn't either. You never know what that guy would have done.
A few years ago, something happened to my best friend and me that still gives me the creeps when I think about it. We were high school seniors at the time, around 2016, and had taken a weekend trip to visit my grandma, who lived a couple of hours away in Georgia. The drive back home took us through tiny, middle-of-nowhere towns, the kind with nothing but cotton fields, empty roads, and no cell service. It was late in the afternoon when we realized we needed gas, so we pulled into this sketchy-looking gas station that was literally in the middle of nowhere. No cars, no people, just a tiny convenience store that looked abandoned, so we didn't bother going inside. Since I didn't want to leave my 5'1" best friend alone in the car, I paid at the pump and started fueling up. A few minutes later, another car pulled up on the opposite side of the same pump. Something about it immediately made me feel weird.
It's probably a trap. You need to hurry up and fill your car, put the nozzle back into the gas pump, and hightail it out of there. Because I'm already getting that feeling that somebody's going to get out of that vehicle and try to talk nice to you and then probably rob you or something. I don't know. Let's just see what happens.
But I tried to brush it off while staying alert. An older man, maybe in his late 50s, got out, and at first he just stood by his car, acting like he was about to pump gas. But then, out of nowhere, he walked around my car door, getting way too close, and asked if he could pump my gas for me. Now that alone was weird. I mean, who even does that? I was already on edge, so I positioned myself between him and the open car door, just in case I needed to slam it shut to protect my friend. Trying to keep it cool, I politely told him, "No thanks, I got it." That should have been the end of it. But instead, he looked me up and down, smirked, and said, "Pretty girls like you shouldn't be out here all alone. You shouldn't have to do this by yourself. Let a man help you, baby." Then, and this is where I knew this was bad, he covered my hand with his as he reached for the gas pump I was already holding. I ripped my hand away and slammed my car door shut, instantly thinking about how easy it would have been for him to jump in and drive off with my best friend still inside. At this point, all my usual politeness was gone. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Sir, get away from me. I can pump my own gas, and I've already said no. Leave us alone." And that's when his entire vibe changed. His smirk disappeared, his chin lifted, and he just stared at me, not saying a word.
Oh, he's mad that you even said that to him. I see where he's going at. He's trying to act all polite, but that'll be kind of weird. At this point, I'll be telling my friend in the car to call the cops if this guy don't leave.
I held eye contact, grabbed the nozzle, shoved it back onto the pump, and jumped into my car. I didn't even care that the tank wasn't full. I just wanted out of there. As I pulled away, I checked my rearview mirror, and that's when I saw it. His car wasn't even being filled with gas. He had never started pumping. That means he hadn't stopped to get gas. He had stopped for us. My friend was shaking the whole drive home. She told me that if she had been alone, she probably would have let him pump the gas just to avoid confrontation. That's what scared me the most. Because if I hadn't been there, I have no idea how that situation would have played out.
Well, if that friend of hers weren't there, that guy probably would have kidnapped her, or even worse, robbed her at that little gas station. I'm just glad she did the right thing and just putting her gas lid back on her gas tank and then taking off.
A little while ago, I moved out of my parents' house and into a tiny apartment in an even tinier rural town, about 3 hours away. One Sunday night, after spending the weekend away, I was driving home and decided to stop for gas at the station about a block from my place. It was dark, but the station was well lit, and I didn't think twice about stopping. On my way there, I passed this guy riding a recumbent bike. You know, the kind where you're practically lying down while pedaling. Didn't think much of it at first, but as I pulled into the pumps, I noticed he had followed me. Still, no major red flags. The attached convenience store was popular for snacks and even rented movies, so I figured he was just stopping by like anyone else. As I walked inside to pay, I held the door open for him, just being polite. He made intense eye contact, like uncomfortably intense, but didn't say anything and went to browse the snack aisle. I brushed it off, paid the clerk, and headed back outside to pump my gas. That's when I got that feeling. You know, the one where the hairs on the back of your neck stand up and your body just knows something's off before your brain catches up. I turned around, and sure enough, Bicycle Man was standing in the shadows by the gas station, staring straight at me. A cold wave rushed over me. I tried to ignore it, hurried to finish up, and went back inside to get my change, hoping that by the time I came out, he'd be gone. He followed me right back in and started making a big show of looking at newspapers by the door, like he wanted me to know he wasn't leaving. At this point, I should have told the clerk I was being followed, but for some reason, I didn't. Instead, I just started wandering the aisles, pretending to be really invested in bags of chips while stalling for time. I did this for at least 15 minutes, waiting him out. Finally, when I didn't see him anywhere, I figured it was safe to leave. Big mistake. I stepped outside, made it maybe a few steps into the parking lot before I heard the door immediately swing open behind me. I glanced back. Yep, Bicycle Man. My heart dropped. I rushed to my car, fumbling with my keys while watching him hurry toward his bike. I threw everything onto my passenger seat, change, wallet, whatever, and peeled out of there as fast as I could. But then it hit me. I had only lived here for a month. I didn't know the area well, and my car? A bright red out-of-state vehicle that stuck out like a sore thumb.
This guy on the bicycle did not even go in there to like shop for snacks or anything else. He was following this lady. But yeah, I'll be doing that same thing too, just hitting the pedal to the metal and hightailing out of there.
He had definitely seen which direction I went, and if he really wanted to, he could just ride around and find where I parked. Panicking, I decided to park across the street from my apartment and take a second to calm down. Except, that wasn't any safer. If he was looking for me, all he had to do was roll up and knock on my window. That thought freaked me out so much that I drove around town for another 15 to 20 minutes before finally spotting the police station. I pulled into the lot and just sat there until an officer came out to talk to me. They never confronted Bicycle Man, but I still see him riding up and down Main Street sometimes. And every time I do, I get that same uneasy feeling in my gut.
Man, I would be getting the cops involved and see if they could go confront him and be like, why are you following this woman around? But it seems to me like he was planning on stalking her to see where she lived at and then possibly rob her. I don't know. That's what vibes I'm getting off of him. Man, that would be disturbing. It was smart to go to the police station to deter him from following me any further.
A few years back, my friend Jane and I decided to take a trip to Portland, Oregon. We're both from the south side of Chicago, and Jane had convinced herself that the West Coast was so much better than our city, including the people. So we flew out, rented a car, which we affectionately named Veronica, and spent a few days exploring. On our last full day, we took a road trip to Aberdeen, Washington, to see Kurt Cobain's childhood home. From there, we worked our way down the coast, stopping by Astoria to check out the house from the Goonies, and ending the day at Cannon Beach to see Haystack Rock. By the time the sun had set, we were ready to head back to Portland.
Right off the bat, that sounds like a fun place to go.
The drive was about 2 hours, and I knew we needed gas soon, so I figured I'd stop at the first station I saw. Cannon Beach is a small resort town, and oddly enough, I didn't see a single gas station. Coming from Chicago, where there are at least 2 on every corner, I wasn't worried. I assumed we'd find one soon. I kept following the GPS while chatting with Jane, but before I knew it, We were on a dark, winding road completely surrounded by trees. No streetlights, no houses, just miles of woods. That's when I started feeling uneasy. I pulled over to check the GPS, which said there was a gas station a mile ahead. Perfect. We kept driving until the GPS announced we'd arrived at our destination. But when I pulled in, I realized the place was completely abandoned. No lights, no signs of life, just an empty, rundown gas station in the middle of nowhere. Veronica's gas gauge told me we had about 10 miles left, but the nearest gas station was 30 miles away. Jane and I sat there trying to figure out our next move when another car pulled in. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe they needed gas too. I kept my focus on the dashboard, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw the driver gesturing toward me. After a brief hesitation, I cracked the window. Inside the car was a middle-aged man and his wife. He asked if we needed gas, if we had come from the beach, if we were headed back to Portland. Just question after question. I kept my responses polite but short. Then, he told us that he actually owned the gas station, but didn't make enough money to keep it open this late. He mentioned a Chevron about 3 miles away, and gave us directions. Before leaving, he handed Jane his number and said, "My name is Sam the Mechanic Man. If you don't make it, give me a call, and I'll come rescue you ladies." We thanked him and drove off.
I'll be thinking that's a kind gesture, but something's telling me that he's probably not the owner of that gas station. But that's just a theory.
Jane was beaming. She went on about how people out here were so much nicer than in Chicago, and how that never would have happened back home. I agreed. It was a kind gesture, but something about it felt off. I joked, what if he just called his buddy at the gas station and said, "I'm sending 2 women your way"? We made it to the Chevron, and a young guy, maybe 18 or 19, came out to pump our gas. He made some small talk before casually saying, "There's a lot of weirdos out here tonight." Jane and I exchanged a glance, and I laughed nervously. "Ha! I told you!" But then I asked him what he meant. He launched into a story about how his brother owed a drug dealer a ton of money and was currently hiding out nearby. Apparently, once his shift ended, he planned to find his brother and kick the shit out of him. At this point, Jane was completely over it. I handed the guy a tip, wished him luck, and we hit the road again. Then Jane did something I hadn't expected. She actually called Sam the Mechanic Man and left him a voicemail, thanking him for his help and letting him know we made it. I thought it was unnecessary, but whatever. About 10 minutes later, as we neared our hotel, Jane's phone rang. It was Sam. She answered, thanked him again, and after some small talk, he told her his full name, Sam Glesty. Then he said, "I actually wrote a book called Wrongly Accused. You two should check it out on your flight home." That caught my attention. Wrongly accused of what? I told Jane to Google it immediately. She did, and her face went white. When I asked her what it said, she could barely get the words out. He was accused of being the Green River Killer. Panic set in. She started freaking out. "Oh my God, he has my number now." Back at the hotel, we dug deeper. Turns out, a survivor of the Green River Killer actually picked Sam out of a lineup. The real killer was later caught through DNA evidence. But around the same time in the 70s, Sam was convicted of abducting and assaulting a young woman in the very area we had been in. His book was about how he was falsely accused. We ended up stranded in Portland for 2 extra days due to a snowstorm in Chicago. It was 2 days of pure tension as we processed what had happened. Looking back, it's terrifying how easily that night could have gone horribly wrong. I'm just glad the only thing I walked away with was a story. So, in the 70s, this guy assaulted a woman and then somebody else picked him to be that murderer. I mean, hey, if you had done something bad in the past, it will probably come back to haunt you. But yeah, I'd be creeped out too if I looked that guy up and be like, holy crap, man, them girls did the right thing and not
trusting that man with gas because he might end up going back to assaulting them too. But I'm just glad that these ladies did not get hurt and they made it back to their hotel and back home safe and sound.
This happened last year around Christmas when I was driving from Nashville, Tennessee to Kent Island, Maryland to visit my parents. It's about a 12-hour drive, and let me tell you, it sucked. The only company I had was my dog Kona, a mix of pit bull, bulldog, husky, and lab. For context, I'm a tall, fairly built guy, so I don't usually get scared easily.
Wow, that's one heck of a dog breed combination. I know he would protect you from anything. He sounds ferocious.
But what happened that night still makes me uneasy. By the time I hit Harrisonburg, Virginia, I was exhausted, and Kona needed a break. I pulled into a gas station around 10 p.m., parked at a pump, and started filling up. While the gas was going, I left Kona in the truck and went inside to grab some food and a much-needed Red Bull. As I walked back out, I noticed a slender, ragged-looking man standing near my truck. He wasn't pumping gas, just standing there, right next to my pump. As I approached, he spoke up, telling me he was homeless and needed extra clothing because of the cold. I felt bad for him, but all I had in my truck were Christmas presents and my own clothes for the trip. I apologized, wished him luck, and kept moving toward my truck. But he didn't drop it. He pointed at the boxes in my truck and insisted anything would help. I told him I had no extra clothes, but I had just bought food inside and offered it to him. He refused. That's when I noticed his whole vibe shifted. His body tensed up, and he stared at my coat before saying, "You could give me that heavy coat you're wearing." It was a nice pea coat, a graduation gift from my mom, so I firmly told him no. That's when he snapped. He started yelling, accusing me of being spoiled and living off my parents. I felt my pulse pick up. Kona must have sensed my tension because she jumped into the driver's seat, staring him down through the window. Then, he stepped closer. Before I could react, he reached out and grabbed my shoulder. I backed up fast, bumping into my truck. He moved in even closer, now just a foot away from me.
I mean, I know he's homeless and he's cold and everything, but he don't have to be so aggressive to a person that said no. The boxes are Christmas presents, and his clothes are his clothes. I mean, if I had a spare jacket in the vehicle, I would have gave it to him. But this guy really is desperate, and he's acting like this other guy is spoiled. He ain't spoiled. It's a gift from his mother. He don't want to give away a gift like that.
His hand still on my shoulder, the other hand buried deep in his pocket. His voice dropped lower, but was dead serious when he said, "I said I need your help." That's when Kona lost it. She started snarling and barking like she was ready to kill. You could hear her through the truck, her teeth bared, foam flying from her mouth. The guy turned to look at her. His whole face changed. I took the chance and said, "Leave me alone right now, or I'll open this door and my dog will rip your fucking throat out." That did the trick. He backed away fast, and I jumped into the truck, shoving Kona out of the driver's seat. She was still going berserk, her eyes locked on the guy as I hurried to put the gas pump away.
There you go. Using that whole line of open up the door to get your dog out to come and attack you. That would make anybody scared and back away. That was a good call on his part.
The moment he was far enough, I floored it out of there. But as I pulled around the side of the gas station, I saw something. The same guy was getting into the passenger seat of a black SUV.
Well, that tells you that he wasn't really homeless. He was just acting like a homeless guy and trying to take advantage of that and steal some of your clothes. They probably just gave up, be like, "No, we're not messing with this dude. He's got a dog that might attack us." I feel bad now because there's a lot of homeless people out in the streets, and then there's people that take advantage of that and act like homeless people, just trying to grab some free money or food or clothes, and it's making the other homeless people look bad, and I don't like it. But I'm glad this guy did the right thing and threatened him with the dog and get out of there quick.
When I first started working the graveyard shift at a gas station near my house, I figured it'd be boring. Just me, a few late-night customers, and maybe some coffee to keep me awake. It was my 6th shift ever, and my 4th working alone, and up until this night, everything had been uneventful. It was just after 11 p.m. when this guy walked in. He looked to be about 40, and I swear, he had the worst bowl cut I had ever seen, like someone put a mixing bowl on his head and went at it with safety scissors.
Trying to look like Moe from the Three Stooges, huh? But I know this dude is probably not trying to be funny. He's probably got something else on his mind.
He came up to the counter and asked if I could break a $100 bill. I told him no, not just because I didn't have the change, but because our store policy didn't allow us to take 50s or 100s on 3rd shift. Apparently, this was a major issue for him. He started getting annoyed and tried convincing me to get change from the safe, which obviously wasn't going to happen. I kept politely shutting him down and moved on to the elderly woman waiting behind him. She asked me to hold her bag while she used the restroom, and while I was taking it, Bowl Cut Guy called his friend inside. The second this friend walked in, I knew something was off. I try not to judge people, but this dude was clearly on something. His face was covered in sores, and he kept touching at them while bouncing on his toes like some tweaker prizefighter. Then, instead of just buying something and leaving, he started asking me a bunch of weird questions. Hey, sweetheart, how you doing? Are you always here alone? Do they let you keep weapons behind the counter? You carry one with you? I always carry a gun. How much money do you guys keep in the registers? Do you still have to do safe drops even when business is slow? Each question made me more and more uncomfortable. Now, I'll admit, I can be a little too mouthy sometimes, and I don't always think before I speak. Finally, after one too many sketchy questions, I just cut him off and said, Look, are you planning to rob me? Because if you are, you're wasting time. I don't have time for this, and I need to get back to work. His hands flew up like I had just accused him of murder. Whoa, rob you? What the fuck? I was just making conversation. What's wrong with you?
She had enough, dude. You keep asking her those weird questions.
I wasn't backing down. Well, then your conversation skills could use some serious work. You don't ask a woman working alone overnight those kinds of questions. So the real question is, what's wrong with you? That's when I noticed something really weird. Bowl Cut Guy had pulled their car up horizontally across the parking spaces, right by the entrance, like they were getting ready for something. At that point, I was beyond done. I told Tweaker Prizefighter to get out and never come back during my shift or I'd call the cops. He must have seen I wasn't playing around because he left without another word. The elderly woman came back from the bathroom and had apparently overheard some of what happened. She asked if I was okay, and I told her I was fine. Just a weird customer giving me a weird feeling. That wasn't the last time I saw him, though. A few nights later, while I was in the cooler restocking drinks, I heard someone yelling at my manager. It was him, arguing about being banned from the store. My manager shut him down fast, telling him he had listened to the security audio and would have done the exact same thing I did. Now, maybe I was being overly defensive. Maybe he really was just mad about not getting change for his friend's 100. But then again, what about all those other questions?
Well, thank God the manager watched and listened to the security tapes on that night. Because if that wasn't working and she told him, then he probably would have been saying, oh, he was probably joking. I said, yeah, they just wanted to make sure that it was clean to do a job like that. And I'm glad that the manager just banned him from that store. I wouldn't let him come back in either if he was acting like that. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications for more Midnight Tales content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Corner Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I say that's a wrap, and have a nice day.